Good evening. You're now with me, Lorenzo Isaac, for TVS Nightline. We begin with this story. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim announced that national oil giant Petronas will commence negotiations with Russia to procure fuel supplies, ensuring Malaysia's strategic reserves remain robust. Speaking in Kota Baru, Anwar highlighted that Malaysia's strong diplomatic ties with Moscow provide a unique advantage as nations globally compete for stable energy sources.
Alhamdulillah, kerana hubungan kita dengan Rusia itu masih baik. Jadi dalam keadaan sekarang ini pun pasukan kita termasuk dari Petronas boleh berunding dengan Rusia untuk memenuhi sebahagian dari keperluan kita sebagai negara sahabat.
Meanwhile, the massive tanker Ocean Thunder has safely arrived at the refinery in Melaka, carrying 1 million barrels of Basrah light crude from Iraq. The arrival is considered highly critical as the Ocean Thunder is one of only 7 vessels recently cleared to transit the volatile Strait of Hormuz. The shipment ensures nationwide fuel sufficiency through at least June 2026. Petronas emphasizes that while West Asian crude accounts for 38% of total imports, the nation's energy security is reinforced by this diversified global network. The refining output is expected to produce 64 million litres of diesel and 48 million litres of petrol, reaffirming the government's commitment to protecting the domestic trade and prioritizing the needs of the people above all else. Cabinet ministers are prepared to accept further pay cuts should the nation's economic situation deteriorate. Communications Minister Fahmi Fadzil confirms that the Cabinet has been briefed on potential adjustments following the economic fallout from ongoing conflicts in West Asia. The move comes as the government braces for the impact of global energy instability on the national treasury. Fahmi notes that salary deductions among ministers are not unprecedented, having been effect since the formation of the Madani Cabinet.
Saya sedia terima apa-apa arahan yang amat berhormat Perdana Menteri. Memang selama ini pun menteri-menteri memang sejak daripada hari pertama gaji kami telah dipotong pada waktu itu dan saya sedia untuk terima apa-apa arahan. Kita pernah bincang tapi terpulang kepada Yang Amat Berhormat Perdana Menteri apa yang dia nak kita laksanakan.
The statement follows comments by Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim on Friday, who indicated the government is scrutinizing pay cut proposals to mitigate rising living costs and fiscal pressure. Addressing the geopolitical turmoil, Fahmi announced that all communications regarding the West Asia conflict will now be coordinated through the National Economic Action Council. The brief reopening of the Strait of Hormuz by Iran on Friday has been described as a significant development that brings relief to global markets. Bank Muamalat Malaysia Berhad Chief Economist Dr. Muhammad Asfanizam Abdul Rashid says the move follows a temporary ceasefire and negotiations between Iran and the United States, which have eased concerns of disruptions to global energy supply. And although Iran today has just announced that the strait has been shut down again, here's what Asfanizam says would happen if the strait remains open. According to him, the immediate impact can be seen as Brent crude oil prices dropped to around $90 per barrel, while the West Texas Intermediate benchmark stood at approximately $83 per barrel compared to over $100 per barrel 1 to 2 weeks ago.
Berita ini dianggap sesuatu yang positif oleh peserta pasaran komoditi dan juga pasaran keuangan global, dan sekiranya perbincangan ini dapat diteruskan, mungkin tempoh gencatan senjata dapat dilanjutkan, dan kita harapkan mungkin ada lagi langkah-langkah untuk memastikan perdamaian antara dua negara ini dapat dimeterai dan sebagainya, maka itu akan sudah pasti menimbulkan suatu impak yang positif, terutamanya dari segi sentimen pasaran keuangan di peringkat global dan juga tempatan. Namun ialah situasi ini masih lagi terlalu awal, tapi adalah sesuatu yang signifikan dan saya percaya peserta pasaran atau market participants akan sentiasa memantau isu ini.
At the same time, the development provides relief to both the government and the private sector in planning economic policies and managing businesses in a more stable environment. Asman Nizam also expects the market opening next week to reflect increased investor confidence, including potential gains in stock prices and a strengthening of the ringgit. However, he cautions that the situation remains at an early stage and requires continuous monitoring by market participants. Not even 12 hours after Iran has reopened the Strait of Hormuz, Tehran has slammed the gate shut for a second time, citing the continued U.S. blockade. The toing and froing over the strait cast doubt on U.S. President Donald Trump's optimism the day before that a peace deal to end the U.S.-Israeli war with Iran was very close. After Iran declared the strait open following the Lebanon ceasefire, more than a dozen commercial ships made a desperate dash through the narrow waterway. But that window snapped shut late this evening. Maritime tracking sites showed tankers suddenly pulling U-turns as Iranian's TTV announced that strict military control had returned. Tehran is blaming the continued U.S. naval blockade of its port for the move, effectively holding a fifth of the world's oil supply hostage as a bargaining chip. While Iran has reopened its airspace to international flights, a sole sign of stability, ordinary Iranians remain in a total internet blackout, now entering its 50th day. With only 4 days left before the current 2-week ceasefire expires, the clock is ticking. Donald Trump has promised a final peace deal is close, but that final deal looks far from certain. Iran wants the U.S. blockade lifted immediately. President Trump told a crowd in Arizona that Iran has agreed to hand over its 60% enriched uranium. But hours later, Tehran's foreign ministry fired back, saying the stockpile is not going anywhere. The second round of talks in Islamabad this week doesn't produce a breakthrough that February 28 conflict could reignite in full force. Iran's railway network was significantly damaged by U.S. and Israeli attacks. Now the trains are back up and running as the nation has quickly rebuilt key infrastructure. RT correspondent Saman Kujuri reports from Tehran.
At the main railway station in Tehran, and as you can see behind me, passengers are moving through the terminals, some awaiting with their luggage, others preparing to board the trains. A scene that at first glance looks completely routine, but this comes at a time when Iran's railway network has been directly targeted during the war, with the United States and Israel striking a number of railway lines across different cities in what officials say was an attempt to disrupt transportation across the country. Iran's railway network spans more than 16,000 kilometers with over 400 stations across the country, making it a critical part of national infrastructure. And yet here at the station, operations appear to be continuing. Trains are still arriving and departing and people are still traveling.
6 points across the railway network in 6 different locations in the country were hit, and specifically several major bridges were targeted by the enemy. The system has always been prepared for risks and emergencies, especially after the 12-day war. Extensive planning was carried out by the railway management for all possible scenarios, meaning that for any potential incident, a predefined response plan existed. Our colleagues considered themselves to be working alongside those on the front lines and immediately began debris removal from the earliest hours. Simultaneously, reconstruction designs were completed and necessary equipment, materials, machinery and manpower were dispatched to the sites according to operational phases. In some areas, communication communication was temporarily disrupted, but thanks to precise planning, 4 points of the network were restored within 4 days after operations began on Wednesday.
What stands out, according to Iranian officials, is the country's level of self-sufficiency in this sector, from operating and maintaining the network to engineering and rebuilding damaged lines. And that effort is reflected in what we are seeing here. Trains are moving and a system that continues to function despite the pressure it has faced.
In fact, in a remarkable coordination effort, one of the international trains, the Tehran-Van train, passed over the reconstructed bridge just hours after completion, safely continuing its journey. The precision of planning was such that the train was already en route from Tehran, while teams were still working on site, and the project was completed just hours before its arrival. The train then safely crossed and reached its destination. This demonstrates precise planning and complete self-confidence in operational capability.
Railways here remain a key part of how people move for work, for family and for everyday life. And while the strikes were aimed at disruption, the focus is on self-sufficiency and recovery. From busy stations like this one in Tehran to critical infrastructure that has been repaired, the effort has been to keep the network running. And for passengers here, what matters most is simple, that the trains are still moving and that daily life can continue. Saman Kujuri, RT, Tehran.
Back to local news, Gabungan Party Sarawak denies viral rumours alleging the party plans to contest the upcoming Sabah state election. Deputy Minister in the Premier's Department for Corporate Affairs, Information and UKAS, Dato' Abdullah Saidol, is formally dismissing the claims, labelling them as false news and fabricated tales. The denial follows social media posts suggesting that Premier Dato' Petinggi Tan Sri Abang Johari Tun Openg intends to expand the coalition's reach beyond Sarawak's borders.
Abdullah stresses that the Sarawak First slogan reflects a commitment to the state's own rights and economic development rather than regional political expansion. He adds that amid global economic uncertainties, the leadership remains fully focused on infrastructure and public welfare within Sarawak. He warns that divisive rhetoric only serves to weaken development agendas and urges the public to disregard the misinformation.
Get all the updates you need all in one app. TVS Inspire brings you live updates on events, news and programs. Available now on the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. TVS Inspire will on your screen anytime, anywhere. Those were the updates on TVS Nightline. I'm Lorenzo Isaac. Thank you for watching and have a good night.